let's take a look at what Mississippi State has been doing this year to pad their stats. They faced Stephen F. Austin, won 63-6. They played one of the worst teams in the Big 12, Kansas State, won 31-10. This is before people knew Kansas State sucked. They played Louisiana Lafayette, terrible team, won 56-10. And after looking at those 3 non-conference games, you can see why they average 6.17 yards per play, and their defense allows 4.37. Now let's look past that. Okay. The Aggies, the Bulldogs here have the worst scoring offense versus conference opponents. Okay? The worst when you look at just who they played in the SEC. And they haven't even played Bama yet. They only average 9.8 points per game and 4.3 yards per play. Okay? That is pretty low, even for SEC standards. The Aggies average 23 points per game and 5.5 yards per play against their rivals in the SEC. This should be a very simple play when you take out all those garbage stats. Texas Tech +3 and sprinkle that money line. All right. Baylor versus West Virginia. West Virginia laying 13.5 points at home. Over-under is at 63. And a lot of people might be a little bit higher on Baylor because how well they played Texas a few weeks back. But you gotta understand, Texas was kind of in a letdown spot after that Oklahoma game. If you know this podcast and listen to us about Oklahoma last week, then you probably already know what's going to happen here. I shouldn't even have to cover this for you guys, but I will anyway because I love talking about sports. West Virginia had a loss before their bye week. That's a very important spot. It's a get-up spot for me. Bounce back. And the Mountaineers are still hoping to get into the college football playoff if they win out. So there is no better defense in the Big 12 to take advantage of, well, besides Kansas, I guess, than the Baylor Bears. Baylor gives up 6.3 yards per play and 31 points per game. Now, the Bears are playing a top 6 team in offense efficiency with the Mountaineers. The Mountaineers are top 6 in offensive efficiency, and they score 37 points per game, and West Virginia gets 7 yards per play. That's a lot. Baylor is one of the fastest playing teams. And what do we say about fast playing teams with bad defenses? They lose fast. They give up points quickly. They run 84 plays per game, which is top 5 out of the 130 college football Division I teams, FBS. Now, West Virginia's defense looks like it's great, but in all actuality, they also had a pretty easy non-conference schedule so far. When they play some pretty good offenses, they can get scored up upon as well. You saw that versus Texas Tech. Baylor can put up some points. They average 31 points per game and 6 yards per play. So because of West Virginia's get-up spot here, I still see them unstoppable. But I also see Baylor scoring some points here because of the speed they play, and West Virginia will give some up. So I can see this game being a 55-30 type of game. So I do like West Virginia to cover the spread, -13, -14, whatever you want to call it. But what I even like more is that over. that we gave out to our clients, our OddsBreakers members, at 63. It is now up to 66.5, but I like this baby all the way up to 70 plus. West Virginia minus 13.5 and big on the over. Couple quick hitters for you guys. NC State versus Syracuse. I'm taking that over 61.5. Syracuse plays very fast, and NC State throws the ball. That's what they do. They throw the ball. So NC State's going to look to score some points after last week's embarrassment at Clemson. You're going to see that happen. And Syracuse scores points and plays very fast. Another quick hitter I'm going to give you. Florida versus Georgia, under 51.5. This game has went under the last 3 years. If you look at the stats, it's went under the total the last 3 years. These are two running teams with great defenses. Florida doesn't have a passing game, but we're not sure about Georgia's either. They have some quarterback controversies there with Fromm. Inconsistent O-lines is what Florida and Georgia has. So I think by the speed these guys play, both are in the bottom 20% of all college teams in plays per game. It looks like a little rain's going to come in, a little wind. I love the under 51.5. Some of our premium plays for members will be Wisconsin versus Northwestern, Clemson versus Florida State, and Illinois versus Maryland. Want to quick cover Washington State versus Stanford. I wanted to bet Stanford here, but you look at Stanford, they're favored by 3 to 3.5 points. The letdown spot is already factored into this game. Washington State is better in the power ratings, probably by 2 points or so over Stanford. So you would think Stanford should be just favored by 1 point or so, or pick them. No, it's at 3.5. So the letdown spot was already factored into this game. I can't take it at 3.5. I can't take Stanford there. As a matter of fact, I would probably lean Washington State at 3.5. But I just wanted to quick cover that because this was one I circled for this game. Another game I'm thinking about taking the Ducks at Arizona. Oregon, they should be pissed off and ready to play next week. So not sure about that. It's at 9.5. Arizona's been playing better, but I'm not. There's also a chance Oregon just might be completely defeated from now having 2 losses. So still contemplating that one. Let's get into the sharp side of the force. All right, and as a reminder, we only go over when there's a difference between a ticket total and the sharp money by over 25%. For totals, it is over 30%. So let's get into the sharp action report. Florida Atlantic hosting Louisiana Tech at 3.5, minus 3.5. Some sharp action there. Wyoming at Colorado State, plus 2. Some sharp action on Wyoming. It's a 39% difference between ticket count and money. Army plus 2 at Eastern Michigan. I like that one. Look what Army did to Buffalo. I believe actually I wrote this at plus 2 a while ago today, and now it's already Army's a favorite at minus 1. It's some dual action going on in that as well. Virginia, sharp action at minus 8.5, hosting at North Carolina. I actually don't like that one. North Carolina has changed a bit since they got their players back. Kansas, plus 13.5, hosting TCU. Arizona State, plus 7 at USC. Sharp on Oklahoma, minus 22 to minus 24.5, hosting Kansas State. About a 43% difference. Brutal for Kansas State, man. Houston, minus 7, hosting USF, South Florida. I think that's climbing. SMU +9 hosting Cincinnati. Not sure if I agree with that one either. Cal +11.5 hosting Washington. There's a 36% difference there. Air Force +10 to +9.5 hosting Boise State, option team. There's some dual action on Florida International at Western Kentucky. Sharp totals. Miami versus Boston College. Under. All the way from 58 down to 49. Big swing there. Dual action, but still a 30% difference. Most of the money is on that under. Wyoming versus Colorado State. Under from 49 down to 46. Dual action on Central Michigan versus Akron. Under down to 45. UMass versus Connecticut, under from 71 down to 70. This was up to 74. I was watching this line at an early point. It looks like the rain and wind forecast came in, and everyone jumped on the under, driving it back down to 70. Purdue versus Michigan State, over 50.5. Yuck, I'm staying away from that total. TCU versus Kansas, over 48.5. A 52% difference there. It's pretty big. So sharps are on the over on the TCU versus Kansas. Iowa versus Penn State, under from 54 down to 51.5. There's dual action on the Cincinnati versus SMU, under from 54.5 down to 50.5. UNLV versus San Jose State, under 59.5. UNLV gave up 50 points to New Mexico. I'm not sure if I'm going to touch their under. Arkansas State versus Louisiana Lafayette. Dual action on the over, 65 all the way up to 70. Notre Dame versus Navy, over 54.5. There's a 57% difference on that one. Navy's defense is pretty weak. San Diego State versus Nevada. Dual action on the under, 49 down to 47.5. Hawaii versus Fresno State, over 59.5. Now, before we get Eddie Owens on, I want to quick go over some of my NFL Week 8 plays. Baltimore versus Carolina. Carolina gets 1 point here. Well, here's a matchup of two teams that had a very strange Week 7. Baltimore missed that extra point to tie the game, at the very end against the Saints, and Carolina was down by 17 in the fourth quarter and won outright. Thank God for us, because we were on those sides, but we were on the Saints and the Panthers, but those games came down to the very end. I like the bounce back spot when it comes to the Ravens. I really do. That's like a Harbaugh type spot. Baltimore is 2-0 against the spread after a loss this year, while Carolina is 0-3 against the spread after a win. Baltimore has the best team defense in the league, allowing only 280 yards per game, while their offense also ranks better than Carolina. The wrong team's favored because of this. The Panthers, they had the best defense league a few years back, but they've lost some players, they have some injuries, and they're just not the same team. They're kind of a middle of the road team for me. They're a little bit better than average, I think, Carolina, but Baltimore's going to bounce back and win this game. We're taking Baltimore -1. All right, next, San Francisco versus Arizona -1. So I know what you're thinking here, right? Please tell me you're not playing this ugly, disgusting, putrid game here. Yeah, I'm sorry, but we are. I wish I can say that we're not, but when situations happen like this, you have to go with what you know and what